So now that we've talked about all of the different problems that can happen by not monitoring your PO2, like hypercapnia, hyperoxia, hypoxia, and whatnot, let's talk about things that can happen mechanically, failures that can happen mechanically. Not just to the rebreather itself, we call those internal booms, but also the things that make the rebreather work, like your diluent, like your oxygen tank, things like that. So let's talk about external booms first, okay? So let's say we're diving, we're down on a wreck, whatever, and all of a sudden, I see all these bubbles just blowing up. Let's say your O2 first stage blew up, your valve came undone, something happens. How do we respond to that?
I love this because this really makes you understand the rebreather. So just think about it. Let's say your O2 did blow up. First, we have to determine, did it blow up? Is that really what boomed? So you're going to shut off both of your gases, your diluent and your O2, and figure out which one is bubbling. Now, if it's your O2, you can cut back on your diluent, and you could have a shutoff valve, or you could connect and disconnect the diluent to your automatic dill valve because it may be hard. I struggle to reach that valve back there on the tank.
For sure.
So I only have I only have diluent. And I can verify that by having looked at my SPG that would be on my O2 or a transmitter. It's showing 0 on my oxygen. But I have diluent. I have my back mount gas. There's really 2 things you can do. One of them, it's what you've always been doing. Just put the regulator in your mouth, change your dive computer to say you're on open circuit, change both of them. It's been monitoring your deco obligation and go up.
Bail out.
You always plan to have enough diluent for a scenario like this in the worst part of the dive. No problem. But I love this thought. We have a gas extender right here called the Dive Talk Go. This is called a semi-closed rebreather option. This is the signal, semi-closed. Now, think about this. I can always do a dill flush into this unit and bring in diluent, and that's always safe. But how is this unit working for me? This is something that Ed Sorensen taught you and I incorporated it forever after this. Why not do a dill flush and understand how much is that PO2 going to drop for me as I breathe to a level where I'm no longer comfortable with as I'm going up? Maybe you are saying to yourself, I am not going to allow it no matter what to drop below a 0.3, well above a hypoxic level. Okay. Take your dill flush, you're in semi-closed mode. Maybe it's 10 breaths for me before it reaches 0.3. 10 breaths on the rebreather just extended your diluent gas by 10. Rather than me breathing in and out on that open circuit where I'm exhaling the gas every time, I'm recirculating that same gas over and over. And before I have to add more diluent to bring the PO2 back up, I took 10 breaths. By the way, it's probably a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I did the drill with Ed, and it was something
20s.
like 30.
Yeah.
30 breaths before I had to add diluent before it got anywhere near hypoxic. And then I have all the time in the world to deal with that problem. So that's what I would do if the oxygen blew up.
And the reason why we can do semi-close is because this is an external boom, meaning the rebreather is working.
It's fine.
It's just your O2 tank happens to be depleted, or your dill in this case. Let's talk about a dill. We just realized we didn't check, we had a leak, whatever, and all of a sudden you press that dill, that ADV button, and it's not adding dill, and you look at your thing, oh, it's on 0. Oh, I don't have any gas at all. Bailout gas, dill gas. Now what do?
What do is you say, I love you, because you're fine. You have a rebreather, a perfectly functioning rebreather. You don't have diluent, but you're going up. What happens automatically, mathematically, to your PO2 as you're going up? It drops. So you only have oxygen. just watch your PO2. You're going up. Oh, look at that. My PO2 is dropping. What do we normally do when we have to raise our PO2? What's the only thing we would be adding?
We add O2.
We add O2, which you have. And now you breathe. You get to your safety stop or your deco stop.
Right.
And you just are breathing on the rebreather. You may not need to add oxygen barely at all.
Yeah.
And it'll take you all the way to the surface. So basically what you really have on that scenario is a normal ascent. Because on an ascent, on a rebreather, you would never be adding diluent anyway.
Yeah.
No problem.
By the way, and you haven't mentioned this, but it should be kind of common sense that if you have a boom, external or internal, you're getting your body and you're telling them, hey, I have a problem, whatever, you signal them so they can be with you. And this is important because of multiple situations. So in this case, you ran out of DIL, okay? You're adding O2 on the way up. But let's say right now your rebreather failed. Now you have an internal failure.
Something internal.
Your
bubbles are coming out of the sorb.
You're out of DIL, and you can't add O2 because your rebreather failed. Now what?
Okay, so let's think about this. Rebreather blew up. I don't know why or how. Lungs, they're no longer there.
Yeah, you got hit by a missile. Yeah.
I don't have diluent, and I don't have O2. Don't forget this one. This is probably the skill you practice most in open circuit diving.
Right.
You dive with a buddy. I'm going to go up to Gus and be like, dude, I'm out of air. And I'm going to be like, I'm out of air. I'm out of air. Guess what he's going to do? He was carrying a long hose. He has a necklace regulator.
Yeah.
And he either has an octo, or I think in Gus's scenario, he likes to have a long hose.
Yeah.
He's going to pass me his regulator, and we're back to good old-fashioned
sharing
air. I changed my computer because we knew I have the same gas as him.
Yeah.
And we go up, and if I have to stop, which I will have to stop more than him because he's on the rebreather, he's on the rebreather.
I have an 80
He's got all day.
ready to go.
Ain't no problem for him. I just say stop. I have a deco obligation, and we go up together.
We're talking about worst case scenario. Like
you can't get worse than that.
No DIL, no O2, rebreather doesn't work. Like worst case scenario, you
air.
default to open circuit emergencies, which is let's share air, let's go up together, just like you've always done it.
So you see how having a rebreather really gives you a lot more options. Gus and I often say that we feel more secure. We feel safer being on our rebreathers. We have a gas extender strapped to our chest during the whole dive. And just think logically, you know how the rebreather works.
Now,
if you don't have DIL and you got to go up, you have oxygen. If you don't have oxygen and you have DIL, you can go back to semi-close or you can go to open circuit.
Now, we just talked about no gas. You ran out of DIL. You ran out of O2. A missile hit you, whatever. What about too much gas? And what I mean by that is your MAV gets stuck on open. Your DIL gets stuck on filling. This thing is just inflating your rebreather. Now what? What do we do?
Happened to me with you.
Right.
Right? My ADV, for some reason, was just at stop. It's adding diluent. It's adding gas.
Yeah, on another rebreather, right? It happened to us in a case.
It's never happened on this, but it happened.
Yeah.
Relax. Turn off your gases, shut off valve, and O2. You're on a rebreather. Turn them off. Your PO2 is fine. It's just adding too much gas. Guess what you can do? You're going to go up. Got to go up.
Yeah.
Got a problem. You have O2. Feather it. Turn it on and off as you're going up. Simple, right? No problem. Now, you may have to do what we call burp the rebreather because now these babies are full of air and they could be bringing you up, right?
Yeah.
No problem. You could either blow it out your mouth
or
like
your
this,
nose.
Or your nose.
Yep.
I prefer out my mouth just because I don't want to
Faster.
accidentally fog my mask. Or you could close it, turn it upside down, burp it, quickly, bunch of air came out, put it back in. You have options. But you see how it's the same thing over and over? It filled up. No problem. I have oxygen. Feather it. Turn the oxygen on and off as you're going up, keeping the proper PO2 because no problem. It's just going to add oxygen, which you got to do anyway when you go up. If the problem was the diluent was adding, who cares? Leave it off. Go up, turn on your oxygen because that wasn't the problem. And it's just back to a normal rebreather ascent.
Last potential internal boom.
Okay.
One or more of your sensors break. Stops working.
Oh.
Now what?
Well, here's the thing. You've got 3 sensors, right? We've talked a lot about this. One or more of my sensors broke. Let's say one of them is working. Which one is the right one is what I need to determine. And how will I know which one is the one I can rely on to get me out of this dive on my rebreather? Or you can always bail out. So that's easy. One, you can bail out and go to open circuit. Nobody's going to question you. But if you want to stay on your rebreather to extend that gas, what is my known gas that is always safe at any depth? Is the diluent. Shearwater Brilliance. Thought of something. There's a right button on your Shearwater. I think it's 2 or 3 clicks. I don't remember,
Right.
but it'll tell you, oh, your PO2 at this depth should be reading the following based on the diluent gas that you have. So guess what you do? A dill flush at that depth, look at your sensors and be like, oh, look at that. Sensor number 3, for example, is reading exactly what it should be. And sensors 1 and 2 are reading something ludicrous. I'm going to end the dive, but
Yep.
I'm going to rely on sensor 3 to monitor my PO2 because I just proved that one is accurate. Dill
That's right.
flush. to
And if it's
prove
just
what-
one of the sensors that failed, you will see them typically like wildly inaccurate compared with the other two. I've actually seen in my computer where it literally votes it out and I only get 2 numbers on the screen. Like it switches from the 3 sensors to 2 and it says these 2 are the ones, trust them. Obviously you're ending the dive, and if you're about to start a dive and you only see 2 of them because the other one got voted out or whatever, do not start the dive with a known issue. This is only you have an internal boom during your dive. How do you isolate the sensors you can trust? And if you can't, bail out.
Exactly. Just remember to close this one out. You have a known gas that's always safe at any depth. Shearwater's Brilliance tells you, because you don't want to do math underwater, tells you what that PO2 should be at the depth you're at if you did a dill flush. So do a dill flush and see which sensor is accurate and end the dive and go up like that. I love you.